Last Thursday night, two rockets rolled out simultaneously at Starbase. One headed to Pad 2, one headed to Massey's. Starship Flight 12 is no longer a question of whether, it is a question of when. And right now, when is very, very soon. NASA brought home 4 incredibly brave humans, and SpaceX and Blue Origin are getting ready to send giants to space from Cape Canaveral. My name is Felix, welcome to What About It, let's dive right in. Starship updates. Last Thursday night between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m., SpaceX executed something that defied all odds. Remember how on the last episode I gave an estimate for Flight 13 and placed it from the beginning to the middle of May? Based on Elon Musk's X-post saying that it was 4 to 6 weeks out. Now, this happened. 2 simultaneous rollouts. Booster 19 rolled out of Mega Bay 1 and headed down the road to Pad 2 at the launch site. At the same time, Ship 39 rolled out of Mega Bay 2 toward Massey's test site during the night from Friday to Saturday. 2 vehicles, 2 destinations, 1 night. By the time the sun came up, Booster 19 was at Pad 2 and Ship 39 was next to the static fire stand at Massey's. Engine installation on both vehicles finished faster than anyone expected. When I talked about this in the last episode, I estimated that this would finish around April 20th. SpaceX beat that by nearly 2 weeks. That is not a small margin. It shows once again that at Starbase, surprises happen all the time. When I say engine installation, this also includes testing them inside the bay. Thrust vector control tests happen inside the Mega Bay. Everything that needs to be tested before the ship can light its engines happens there. Ship 39 finished its cryotest campaign on March 4th with some spectacular views. On March 9th, it rolled back to the production site and straight into Mega Bay 2. Since then, it took the engine team less than a month to install all engines, do checks, and green-light it for the static fire. Impressive, but that's not the only thing they did. Booster 19 finished its first static fire campaign on March 16th with an impressive but not nearly full engine complement. SpaceX had only installed 10 engines in strategic positions. 4 on the outermost ring, 4 on the middle ring, and another 2 of the 3 center engines. This engine placement was strategic and can be attributed to risk management. Everything about Flight 12 will be new. The ship, the booster, the pad, so SpaceX decided to take it slow and do a first static fire round with only those 10 engines. During the static fire, they encountered a GSE problem, meaning that something with the ground support equipment didn't function as planned. Ground support equipment includes everything from the pad to the tank farm to the launch tower. I quote, "While the 10-engine static fire ended early due to a ground-side issue, we saw successful startup on all installed Raptor 3 engines. Next up, preparing the booster for a 33-engine static fire." On March 18th, Booster 19 rolled back to the production site and right into Mega Bay 1. So, while SpaceX had around a month to install the 6 ship engines, they only had 22 days for the booster. And to make that even more impressive, they had a total of 32 days to install 23 engines on the booster and 6 on the ship, 29 engines in 32 days. Installing a Raptor 3 engine is not exactly plug and play, but to make it happen so quickly, SpaceX must have designed the engine interface with an incredible amount of fast swapping in mind. Impressive. Well done, SpaceX. Let's see if it worked, shall we? Beach and road closures were filed for April 12th as the primary date, with backups running through the 13th, 14th, and 15th. That window covered the static fire for both vehicles. Arrived at both the launch site and Massey's, SpaceX did not wait around. I was baffled to see this. In quick succession, both ship and booster were lifted on top of Pad 2 and the one-stop ship shop. On Saturday, just hours after the rollout, the ship already performed what appeared to be a spin prime test. Cryogenic propellants are flown through all 6 engines, and the pre-burners are spun up but not ignited. It's almost impossible to see in the footage, but that's very likely what happened. Shortly after that, on Sunday, it was Booster 19's turn. Same procedure, cryogenic propellant, spin prime, all looked fine, and on Pad 2, it was much easier to see it in progress than at the much more secluded Massey test stand for the ship. Let's talk about what makes these static fires significant, because it is not just about checking boxes. Ship 39 and Booster 19 are the first Starship stages ever to fly Raptor 3 engines, and the configuration is worth understanding. Raptor 3 is a cleaner, more powerful, and hopefully more reliable engine than its predecessor. Take a look at this. It's booster 4 compared to booster 19. Look at how literally everything visible has changed since then. Raptor 3 and the booster itself are almost complete redesigns compared to version 2 and 1. An actively cooled powerhead and as a result minimal shielding requirement for the engine bay. SpaceX reduced it to shielding around the thrust vector control actuators, which move the engines in flight for steering. Then there is some shielding around the 2 turbopumps. That's it. Before, the entire engine needed to be covered from the combustion chamber up. Everything was covered. While we have Ship 39 at Massey's and cameras all over it, I want to revisit something we flagged weeks ago that we still do not have a definitive answer on, and something new that we first saw during the Ship 39 rollout: the pipes and the tiles. But before we look at those, let's talk about a different kind of protection that works extremely well. Look, we all spend a ridiculous amount of time online, researching rockets, watching launches, doom-scrolling space news at 2 a.m. But how much of that is actually private? Your service provider, advertisers, and who knows who else can see what you're doing? Everything you do online gets logged somewhere by someone. Surfshark VPN, today's sponsor, encrypts your connection so nobody's snooping on your traffic. It works on unlimited devices, so your phone, laptop, tablet are all covered under one account. And it's not just about privacy. Imagine traveling abroad and suddenly half your streaming library is gone. Surfshark lets you connect to servers in over 100 countries so you can access your content wherever you are. It also comes with an ad blocker, data breach alerts, and even an antivirus all bundled in. Start your 7-day free trial and unlock 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. Head to surfshark.com/Felix or use code Felix at checkout. Alright, running alongside the aft flaps on Ship 39 there is a set of pipes that routes from the engine section area upward toward the liquid oxygen tank. We spotted these pipes when Ship 39 first rolled out, and they generated a lot of discussion in the community. What are they for? Honestly, we still don't know for certain. The theories range from pressurization lines to a thermal management system. None of them has been confirmed. What I can tell you is that they are clearly intentional, clearly meaningful, and clearly part of a design decision SpaceX made on version 3 that did not exist on previous ships. When we find out what they do, it will likely tell us something interesting about how this vehicle was designed differently from its predecessor. If you have a theory, drop it in the comments. I am still reading every single one. Now for the tiles. Something else on Ship 39 caught my attention. The leeward side of the aft flaps, the side that faces away from the plasma during re-entry, is now almost entirely covered in thermal protection tiles. Now, your first instinct might be re-entry protection. The flaps take enormous heat during re-entry, so adding more tiles sounds like it could make sense. But here's the problem with that theory. On the leeward side of the flaps, plasma does not reach during re-entry. That surface is shielded by the geometry of the vehicle's attitude during atmospheric re-entry, and the tiles on that side do not protect against heat. And they don't go all the way into the gap between the flap and the hull, so they are not protecting that gap from plasma ingestion either. There are also 4 large patches of tiles on the leeward side of the hull as well. Same story. They are obviously not for re-entry protection. So what are they doing there? My idea is that this is a tile adhesion and vibration testing program. Each of those tiles almost certainly has a sensor embedded in it. SpaceX is using the leeward flap surface and the hull as a testbed to gather data on how tiles behave under the acoustic and vibration loads of an actual flight in a location where the structural consequences of a tile failing are low to non-existent. If you remember back, this isn't new either. On Flight 11 with Ship 38, SpaceX had already started doing exactly this with a handful of instrumented tiles spread out in a deliberate pattern on the leeward side of the aft flaps. What we're seeing on Ship 39 is that program continuing and expanding. The entire surface is now dedicated to this testing, not just a few scattered tiles. SpaceX is still learning how tiles attach, how they vibrate, and how they degrade across a real flight environment. Every data point makes the heat shield on future vehicles better. So where does this leave us on the path to Flight 12? Is the Flight 12 hype train ready to leave the station? Train conductor Felix says yes.
I'm a performer, darling, not a Swiss train conductor.
Historically, after a successful static fire, SpaceX spends roughly a week or two on post-fire inspections and vehicle checkouts. Both vehicles come back to the production site, teams go through everything, and if the data looks good, the launch campaign begins in earnest. That week or two of checks puts a realistic launch window at around April 22nd, give or take. So what did Elon mean by saying 4 to 6 weeks? I know as much as you do. Now there is still one decision SpaceX has to make before it can launch. Do they do a wet dress rehearsal first, stacking both vehicles at the pad, filling them with propellant and running through the full launch sequence? Or do they skip it and go straight to an attempt, which, if it fails, is a wet dress rehearsal on its own? Given that this is the first flight of version 3 hardware, a completely new booster design, a completely new ship design, and a completely redesigned pad, the argument for a wet dress rehearsal is real. There is an enormous amount of new hardware interacting for the first time. A dry run before the real thing might save a scrub on launch day. On the other hand, SpaceX skipped the wet dress rehearsals on the last several flights. Speed is the SpaceX philosophy. And with Musk tracking 4 to 6 weeks, the pressure to move fast is clear. Either way, Flight 12 is no longer on the horizon. It is close enough to plan around. We're maybe just a week or two away from Flight 12. Yes! Where will you watch it from? Will you join my live stream or will you be on site and watch in person? Let me know in the comments. Hey, thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching and liking the video. If you're among the 40% who haven't subscribed yet, it would mean the world to me if you did. It is free and it genuinely helps more people find my channel to spread the word about spaceflight. Want to make my world even easier? There is only one place you'd rather be, the Y Members Club on Patreon and right here on YouTube. Click the card or the join button right here under the video. You are the reason we keep doing this. Thank you so much. You rock. 4 humans left Earth on April 1st, riding into the sky on top of the giant SLS. 10 days later, they returned as heroes. The crew flew a total of roughly 1.12 million kilometers and broke multiple records. Impressive. But these are just numbers, and numbers alone don't explain why Artemis 2 matters. Going to the moon is the stuff that dreams are made of. It's an inspiration for people around the globe, a spark that ignites curiosity and the spirit of exploration.
We're going back to the fucking moon, that's why.
It took more than 50 years to reach this moment, and NASA now wants to turn that vision into reality faster than ever before. Shortly after splashdown, Administrator Isaacman found the right words for the occasion.
I'm still at a loss for words. I mean, you know, like the childhood Jared right now can't believe what I just saw. I mean, almost been waiting my whole lifetime to see this. You guys think we just brought some astronauts back from the moon, huh?
This splashdown was watched live by millions of people around the world. Some sports events took a break to show the moment the capsule touched down in the stadium. After splashdown, NASA and US military teams quickly recovered the capsule in the Pacific and helped the crew disembark. 2 helicopters then ferried the 4 astronauts over to the support ship USS John P. Murtha. Commander Reed Wiseman, pilot Victor Glover, mission specialist Christina Cook, and Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen all returned in excellent health. You have to understand that nothing about Artemis 2 was routine. Orion and SLS had never carried humans before. The astronauts used new spacesuits and the mission profile was also very different from the Apollo flights. It was a high-stakes mission, but NASA's preparations paid off. It resulted in an overwhelming success. The crew returned with more than 7,000 images of the lunar surface and detailed visual observations from orbit. Engineers also collected enormous amounts of data from every major system. The Orion capsule integrity itself was recovered using an intriguing technology. The recovery ship lowered its well gate. Then the back of the ship filled with water and the capsule could float in. It will now be inspected in detail, providing engineers with critical information for future missions. Artemis 2 may be over, but in many ways this is only the beginning of a future where humans return to the moon to stay, and eventually learn to live on other worlds. The next months and years will be filled with milestones toward these goals. SLS kicked off a very special month at the Cape, a month of the giants. In the next few weeks, 2 more of the most powerful rockets on Earth will launch from the same stretch of Florida coastline. They couldn't be more different. One of them is a proven workhorse with a perfect track record, the other is a brand new giant that has only flown twice and is now attempting something it has never done before, a booster reuse. These 2 rockets represent completely different ideas about how heavy lift rockets should be built. One was created by SpaceX, the other comes from Blue Origin. Right now, Falcon Heavy and New Glenn are both preparing for launches in April. It is a rare moment where the 2 most capable Western rockets will fly almost back to back. Just weeks after SLS roared into the Florida sky. And with a little luck, Starship will join them as well. Comparing them reveals a lot about where the future of heavy lift rockets is heading. And there is yet another player about to enter the game, but more on that later. Let's start with the newcomer, New Glenn. Blue Origin's largest rocket is getting ready for its 3rd mission, NG-3. The launch is targeting no earlier than April 16th from Cape Canaveral's Launch Complex 36. This mission has slipped several times already, but that is not unusual for a rocket that's still early in its life. Seeing a launch is always nice, but the interesting part is what Blue Origin plans to attempt here. They want to reuse a booster for the first time. We'll see the return of Never Tell Me the Odds. That was the booster used on NG-2 and the first ever New Glenn first stage recovered after landing on drone ship Jacqueline. May the odds be ever in your favor. New Glenn reached orbit on its very first flight in January 2025, and by November, Blue Origin had landed the booster on just the 2nd attempt. The next step is obvious. Refly that booster and complete the full reuse cycle, because that is what counts the most. The payload is Bluebird 7, carrying a huge antenna that unfolds in space to roughly the size of a basketball court. That is large. Satellites like these are one reason New Glenn was built with an enormous 7-meter payload fairing, almost the diameter of Starship. For satellites with huge deployable antennas like this one, volume matters as much as weight. New Glenn is also physically enormous, standing 98 meters tall, roughly the height of a 30-story building. The first stage runs on methane fuel, while the upper stage uses liquid hydrogen for maximum efficiency. In reusable mode, New Glenn can deliver around 45 tons to low Earth orbit, and in theory, the booster is designed to fly at least 25 times. While New Glenn is still proving itself, the other rocket preparing for a launch in Florida has already built an impressive track record, Falcon Heavy. SpaceX's heavy lift rocket is scheduled to return to flight in late April. Sadly, it's been a while since we've seen one fly. The last Falcon Heavy launch was in October 2024 when it sent NASA's Europa Clipper spacecraft on a journey to Jupiter. I was there in person and it was incredible as always. Now Falcon Heavy is about to come back for a big commercial launch. Its payload is Viasat-3 Flight 3, a massive broadband communications satellite. This satellite is so massive that it simply can't fly on Falcon 9, it needs the extra lift capability of Falcon Heavy. The rocket will send it toward geostationary orbit, where the spacecraft will eventually operate about 36,000 kilometers above Earth. And the launch profile will look familiar. The 2 side boosters will separate and return to land at Cape Canaveral. The center core will be expended to maximize performance. That's typical for Falcon Heavy missions heading to high-energy orbits. Falcon Heavy is a fascinating rocket because of how simple its design is. Instead of building a completely new vehicle, SpaceX essentially took 3 Falcon 9 rockets and strapped them together. Though they initially underestimated the task during development, it wasn't quite as simple as that. Each core contains 9 Merlin engines, giving the vehicle a total of 27 engines at liftoff. Together, they produce roughly 2,325 tons of thrust, that is slightly more than New Glenn. It uses an older propellant, known as RP1, a higher refined kerosene, extremely well understood and highly reliable, but thanks to its tendency to form soot during combustion, it's not as good as methane for reuse. The reliability is evident in Falcon Heavy's record. Since its debut in 2018, the rocket has flown 11 missions with a perfect success rate. It has launched NASA science probes, military payloads, weather satellites, and even Elon Musk's famous Tesla Roadster on its very first flight. Falcon Heavy is a pragmatic evolution. It uses existing Falcon 9 hardware and manufacturing lines. It's basically a clever way to scale up a rocket SpaceX already knew worked. Right now, Falcon Heavy has the reliability advantage, but New Glenn could eventually offer more flexibility for large satellites and future space infrastructure. Both rockets are already competing for some of the most valuable launches in the world. That includes US national security missions under the Pentagon's launch program, and Blue Origin also has another huge customer waiting in the wings, Amazon. The company has booked up to 27 New Glenn launches for its LEO satellite constellation. Those launches are expected to start ramping up as early as mid-2026. Blue Origin is confident it can ramp up from just a couple of flights per year to a much higher launch cadence. It has already filed initial documents to build another launch pad. Slight setbacks such as a GS2 tank failure during testing last week won't hold back overall progress. Meanwhile, Falcon Heavy is likely to remain a low flight rate rocket used for very demanding missions, and hovering over this entire competition is a much larger question. Because both of these rockets will eventually face the same challenge: Starship. It is still in its test phase, but it holds a promise the other two can't match: rapid and full reusability. Once it reaches operational status, it could deliver up to 200 tons to low Earth orbit on a single flight, far more than either Falcon Heavy or New Glenn. Its fairing will be large enough to launch a small house into orbit, and it aims to do so at an even lower price point thanks to full reuse. This will completely reshape the heavy lift market. For a brief moment in 2026, Falcon Heavy and New Glenn may represent the peak of traditional heavy lift rocketry, but once Starship works, this entire market will change once again. And that's it for today. Smash the like button, subscribe for more. This is what fuels the algorithm, and this is how you can help us for free. Check out our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store. Our brand new Raptor emblem design and countless others are there for you to explore. Click the US or worldwide link in the description. And if you want to know how SpaceX is planning to build a self-sustained moon base in the next 10 years, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next episode.